Discover the incredible truth. The Apache woman uncovers an unexpected kindness from her captor. Naya hurried through the tall grass of her family's New Mexico ranch, a storm looming overhead, the clouds heavy and dark like her thoughts. The ranch had been in her family for generations. Her ancestors had walked this land with pride and purpose. Now it was threatened by a powerful developer intent on transforming it into a sprawling golf resort, wiping away the very essence of her heritage. She felt the weight of her history pressing down on her shoulders as she sprinted to inspect her livestock. Each hoofprint reminded her of the legacy she was determined to protect. In a flash, everything spiraled out of control. As she ducked under a low-hanging branch, she collided with a figure dressed in a uniform she loathed. Sam, the devourer of dreams, a foreman working for the developer. In an instant, confusion turned to panic as he misidentified her, claiming she was a criminal intruder. Bound by ropes, her heart raced, battling the turmoil inside her. How could this be happening? Wasn't it enough that she had already lost so much? Days turned into an agonizing blur as Naya shared a confined space with Sam, her captor, yet somehow the only source of human connection. Initially, he captured her in silence, measuring her struggle with the careful, calculated distance of a businessman. But as they occupied the dilapidated barn together, she could no longer ignore the complexity of his presence. For every word he withheld, his gaze betrayed a layer of unspoken emotions, a struggle to balance ambition against something deeper. The storm outside raged, mirroring the tempest brewing within. As she confronted her conflicting emotions, Naya underestimated the tension rising between them. How could she be drawn to someone who worked against her family's livelihood? Torn between indignation and empathy, she began to see glimpses of the man buried under his duty. Sam awkwardly provided food and shelter in moments of calm, and for a fleeting moment she felt a flicker of hope. It was a strange kindness amidst their chaotic reality, but how could she trust someone like him? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Confusion gnawed at her insides until it culminated in a confrontation. Naya stood her ground, heart pounding in courage as she demanded to know the truth. There it was, his furtive dealings with the developer, the dark truth that threatened to sabotage everything she held dear. As lightning lit the barn, illuminating Sam's conflicted expression, she found it more difficult to breathe. He was becoming a paradox. Could he ever truly understand the weight of what her ranch represented? Their worlds clashed in a heart-wrenching moment that stripped away all pretense. She could practically hear the shattered pieces of their connection echo through the tense air. They were teetering on the edge of irreparable damage. What would they choose? Honor their respective paths, or fight against the storm threatening to drown them both in despair? The rain poured heavily outside, filling the silence as doubts and fears swirled around them, binding them together yet pulling them apart. Naya stared into Sam's eyes, searching for answers, a flicker of humanity in the strong facade of ambition. In the heart of the storm, would they stand united or succumb to the raging winds of greed? Their intertwined fate loomed ahead, dark and uncertain. As the rain beat against the barn's weathered roof, thoughts raced through Naya's mind like the chaotic storm outside. Her heart hammered against her chest, each pulse a reminder of the stakes at hand. Could she truly voice her fears and desires when standing face to face with the embodiment of everything she loathed? The conflict within her twisted and turned, mirroring the whirlwinds of nature, a fierce struggle between her inherited pride and the lure of compassion blooming in the hushed corners of her conscience. Naya's defensive stance began to seize under the weight of Sam's penetrating gaze. He seemed to embody both her enemy and her potential ally. How had they reached this precarious point? Professionally, he was tasked with dismantling everything her family had built. Yet personally, there was a flicker of understanding between them, an invisible thread anchoring her emotions amid the unfolding chaos. As the thunder growled ominously overhead, Naya's mind whirled with a calculation of her own. She was never one to accept defeat easily. Her lineage and years of hard work instilled a stubbornness that had always guarded her. Yet there she stood, caught between the imminent threat of loss and the dread of opening herself to vulnerability. In that moment, she felt her heart ache, not just for her ranch, but for the revelation that her anger might be blinding her to important truths. "What do you really want, Sam?" Her words sliced through the tension, raw and blunt. It was a risk, but it felt necessary. He hesitated. For a brief moment, she saw him assess his options, the unrelenting corporate ambition in conflict with darker undertones of conscience. Sam shifted his weight, his features cast in sharp relief against the dim light filtering through the barn's slats as he contemplated his answer. "I want to do my job," he replied, but the weariness in his voice betrayed a heavy heart caught in a moral crossfire. "But there's so much more at stake than just the land." Naya felt a flutter, an inkling of possibility. Her anger began to unspool, unraveling the barriers she'd built. "You think I don't know what's at stake? This land represents my family's legacy, our history, everything." Sam nodded, the weight of that acknowledgement seeming to add years to his youthful face. "And that's why this is so difficult. I see the beauty of it, Naya. This land, it's alive, but I can't ignore the pressure, the demands." As he trailed off, Naya's heart wrestled with impulsive decisions. She wanted to rage, to rail against the fate she found distilled in the depths of his eyes, yet standing close to him, she could sense an unsettling truth. He was just a man, not a monster. Did she dare believe he might understand her struggle? In forging this mental alliance, she sensed a burgeoning strength, an ability to find common ground. It was not just about her fight anymore. It became a moment of mutual reckoning, a shared vulnerability they both needed to navigate. Sam took a tentative step forward. "We could make them listen, together." The gravity of his words suspended Naya's breath momentarily. Would they dare challenge the formidable force of the developer together? Emboldened yet wary, she felt a mixture of fear and curiosity knitting together a new path. "What are you suggesting?" she asked. But within her, a flicker ignited. Could she partner with the man she'd loathed? Their unexpected alliance hovered on the brink of realization, but with it came the anticipated peril. The challenge of her personal beliefs versus the potential for future gain loomed menacingly. Just as she began to navigate the complexities ahead, unfamiliar motivations swelled within her. But that was only the beginning. As Naya wrestled with the implications of hope, a new storm gathered outside, one of uncertainty and ambition, primed to ignite the ground beneath them. How far was she willing to go? And more crucially, what were the real sacrifices that united them both? Just then, a distant rumble echoed through the growing darkness, an omen of the forces they would face. The tempest was gathering speed, and they had no choice but to prepare. The moment had arrived. Together, they would confront not just the storm, but the threats to their very beings. Would they emerge stronger, or would the winds of greed tear them apart? Naya's resolve began to crystallize in the dim light of the barn, the smell of earth and rain grounding her, as the distant thunder overlapped with the pounding of her heart. The storm outside raged not just in the skies but within her, an unsettling mixture of apprehension and burgeoning empowerment. What would it mean to work alongside Sam? Could she truly set aside her family's painful legacy to forge an uncertain path toward a shared future? "You must understand," she began cautiously, her voice trembling with a newfound determination. "This isn't just about land for me. It's about my family's spirit, the stories tied to every oak and riverbank. If we're to challenge this development, we must tread carefully." Sam nodded, his demeanor shifting from corporate indifference to genuine understanding, as though he'd inadvertently begun to peel back layers of his own motivations. "I get that, Naya, but we'll have to expose the true benefits of this land, how it connects us all, to make them listen." The notion of collaboration ignited a flicker of hope within her. Was it possible to merge their strengths? To blend his business acumen with her intimate knowledge of the land? Each idea spun in her mind like the wild wind outside, a chaotic dance of risk and potential. A decision loomed on the horizon, demanding her attention. Yet fear clenched at the edges of her optimism. What if trusting him meant vulnerability? She instinctively clutched her father's old leather bracelet, the one she'd worn ever since he passed. That simple object tied her tightly to her past, reminding her of the hard work and heartache that had sustained generations before her. Here was the crux of her struggle, to honor the legacy without being shackled by it. "Can we map out a plan?" Naya's voice firmed as she embraced this raw, uneasy alliance. "Definitely." Sam straightened, an intensity sparking in his eyes, transforming him from an adversary into a partner, however unorthodox. They began sketching potential strategies, trading ideas that felt startlingly impactful because of their differences. Naya's heart thudded with exhilaration as vulnerability morphed into a tangible force, an undeniable drive toward action. As they outlined the steps to challenge the project with bold strokes, every ounce of her instinct urged caution. Yet there was also a thrill in the unknown. She discovered a surprising strength in herself, the ability to articulate her vision, draw connections between their goals, and even visualize the tangible landscape of resistance that lay ahead. "Think about it," Sam prompted, his corner of the page covered in notes. "If we can illustrate how the ranch is not just a business but a living ecosystem, an asset to the community, then we can flip the narrative." Framing this initial collaboration around a shared purpose altered everything: her position, her mindset, and even the weight of her legacy. As they dove deeper into the reality of the project, Naya recognized the importance of being seen not only as a protector of her heritage, but also as a persuasive force for change. Something within her shifted. Acceptance of the truth that partnership could emerge from confrontation, that her ability to negotiate a new identity might emerge from cooperation rather than isolation. "Soul of the land," Naya whispered to herself, noting how this phrase beautifully encapsulated both their objectives. Suddenly, outside, a blinding flash of lightning illuminated the barn. It revealed an ominous figure approaching through the rain-soaked fields. Tension surged between them, cutting through their discovery like a knife. "Naya," Sam warned, his voice low. "I think someone is coming here." Instinct kicked in as her pulse quickened, but more importantly, she felt the gritty resolve stirring inside her. The entire narrative hinged on how they responded to this looming threat, and for the first time in months, Naya felt she was on the precipice not just of resistance, but of transformation. Would they remain resolute in their new alliance against the imminent danger that forced them into the next chapter? The figure became clearer as it stepped into the light, a man cloaked in dark rain gear. Naya's heart leaped into her throat, an emotion akin to dread coursing through her. What did he want? Was he friend or foe? The tension was palpable, thickening the air around them. "Stay back," Naya called out, her voice steadier than she felt, and yet, beneath the bravado lay a flicker of something deeper. Fear. Sam was by her side, his expression mirroring her concern. She saw no weapon, but that didn't soften the hardened look on the stranger's face. "What are you two doing here?" His voice, gravelly and intense, cut through the sound of rain tapping against the barn roof. Each word hung heavy with suspicion, slicing into Naya's fragile sense of safety. "We're working on a project. You wouldn't understand," Sam replied sharply, yet with an air of authority. Naya admired the way he stepped into a protective role, even though his stance was equally defensive. The man stepped closer, eyes narrowing, probing for a glimpse of their intentions. Naya felt a surge of irritation. Their plans shouldn't be up for scrutiny by a stranger. She felt emboldened by the righteous anger burning in her chest. "Listen," she interjected, her voice rising. "We're not doing anything illegal. We're standing up for what matters, this land. You don't understand the history here. It's not just ground, it's family." His eyes narrowed, processing her words with an unexpected flicker of understanding. "I can see that. Maybe you should have left it alone then." For a heartbeat, silence fell, charged with unspoken histories and shared burdens. Naya recognized a kindred spirit in his defiance, pulling on the thread of empathy buried within her own motives. "Why do you say that?" Sam pressed, attempting to draw the man further into the conversation. "Because I know what happens to people like you," the man replied, his tone softening yet heavy with resignation. "You think you can stop these big developers? They have too much power, too many resources. I've seen people lose everything trying to fight." Naya bristled at his fatalism, her heart pounded with both frustration and determination. "What do you mean by people like you?" she demanded, trying to peel back layers of his words. People who care too much, he said, a hint of pain lining his expression. People who think emotion can stand against greed. I used to be like that. A challenge stirred within Naya, igniting a fire in her like she had never felt before. Then it's time for you to change. It's time for us all to change. You know this land deserves to be seen as more than a check on a developer's balance sheet. Sam glanced at Naya, a spark of inspiration igniting in his eyes, as though he sensed the shift within her. We can navigate around their power, he said. We have strategies. We can utilize insights, create community interest. Naya knew the words rang true. She could feel the strength of her beliefs rising like the storm around them. The conversation, born from opposition, had unveiled a critical truth. To confront power, they needed to be united, strong in intention and armed with clarity. Turning back to the man, she softened her voice. What do you want? Will you help us? Join our cause rather than resigning to defeat? He hesitated, an internal battle mirrored in his furrowed brow. Fear battled with the flicker of hope she had just ignited. Why should I trust you? He asked, his resolve wavering. Because, she replied, holding his gaze with unwavering determination. This isn't just about land. It's about people, stories, futures. Together, we can do more than any one of us could alone. Naya felt the rising tide of her convictions pushing her towards this moment. Would he seize the opportunity to shift his perspective? As the storm continued to rage outside, a thunderous clap punctuated their impasse, echoing the conflict that swirled around them. Naya held her ground, envisioning a movement that could transform not just a development plan, but also the spirits of those who had grown weary of battle. With each passing second, the gravity of her mission sunk deeper into her consciousness. Here in this barn, she was no longer alone in her fight. She stood at the foundation of a new alliance that might reshape everything they believed possible. Just as the man opened his mouth to respond, a second flash of lightning illuminated the darkened landscape. Another figure emerged from the shadows behind him, one she instinctively felt she should fear. Would this new arrival threaten what they were building? Or could it be the turning point they needed for success? The second figure stepped forward, silhouetted against the chaotic dance of lightning. Naya's instinct seized, her heart raced, and the air thickened with tension. The first man, still contemplating Naya's proposal, turned to face this newcomer, his expression shifting from apprehension to something more profound, as if he recognized the threat or promise that hung in the balance. Naya's mind whirled in disarray. Who was this person? What did their arrival mean for the fragile pact she felt was forming? The approach of the new figure brought forward a cocktail of emotions, fear, intrigue, and curiosity. She needed to stay grounded. Who are you? She demanded, her voice rising defiantly against the cacophony of thunder. Name's Corbin, he replied, his tone casual yet bypassed the typical warmth of meeting. And I'd advise you to leave before things get messy. He leaned slightly forward, assessing the atmosphere like a seasoned predator with his prey. Messy, Sam echoed incredulously. This is our land. We have every right to be here. There was a fire in Sam's tone, yet Naya could sense the fragility beneath it, a thread of uncertainty creeping into their defenses. Corbin studied them for a moment, and in that span, Naya could feel the weight of decisions hanging in the air. She realized this was a pivotal moment for both her and Sam, and more crucially, for the man they were in conflict with, the man who had begun to waver in the face of their conviction. No one can take rights from you that aren't already been forgotten, Corbin said, shifting his gaze away as if speaking of meaningless numbers on a page. You think you can convince this guy to join you against the corporation? You'd be better off fighting the storm. The biting edge of his words struck deep, but Naya felt adrenaline coursing through her. This was where growth happened, she reminded herself. It was not merely a test of their resources, but a challenge of her will, and whether she could harness that energy into something constructive. Maybe you're right, but, Naya shot back, narrowing her eyes to draw confidence from the storm around her. The storm can't change the fact that love for this land has fueled generations. You might be uninterested, but we are here, not just to fight for the earth, but for every voice silenced by greed. There was a pause, and for an instant, Naya thought she saw a crack in Corbin's hardened facade. She pressed on, determined to draw strength from this unlikely gathering of minds. The fight may seem futile to you, but it's not just about winning. It's about making the corporations see the value of what they plan to destroy. We have strategies to reveal the stories of the people here. She pointed meaningfully toward the first man, who stood silent but visibly drawn in by her words. What if I told you I can help with that? Corbin's demeanor shifted, subtle but palpable. Help? Sam questioned, skepticism apparent in both his voice and posture. Only if you quit playing the hero, Corbin replied, a hint of a smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. The system's bigger than anything you think you know. I know it well. I used to work for the developers until I realized what I was enabling. Naya absorbed this revelation, her mind racing. It was a revelation that transformed their dynamic. If Corbin held inside a knowledge, it was a potential lifeline. Why should we trust you? She asked, attempting to control the caution that pitted against her desire for growth and change. You shouldn't, he admitted simply, hands raised. But without knowledge, you're just sending arrows into the dark. Decisions coiled in Naya's mind, teetering on the edge of conflict and possibility. What if aligning with him meant the difference between success and failure? Could she harness her instincts while subverting her fears? Lightning flashed once more, illuminating whispers of doubt and hope entangled within her mind. She felt trapped between the fear of trusting the unknown and the growing urgency to embrace a chance at monumental change. The stakes were now higher than ever, as her thoughts swelled with the weight of impending choices. Behind her own uncertainty loomed an even greater question. Would her ambitions lead them all into darkness? Or could they ignite a spark that would light the way to their collective future? As she pondered, the distant sound of thunder echoed a challenge she couldn't ignore. The time had come to face the storm, both outside and within herself. How could they navigate this new alliance, and what truths might emerge as they ventured deeper into uncertain waters? Naya's thoughts spiraled as she weighed the implications of Corbin's offer. His presence shifted the atmosphere from confrontation to a tentative partnership, and a nagging question fluttered in the back of her mind. Would this man betray the trust they had yet to establish? We need information, she stated, her voice settling into a steadier rhythm. If you truly want to help, then we need to understand the terrain we're about to navigate. What you know could very well change everything. Corbin regarded her with an intensity that threatened to flay her composure. And what do you bring to the table, Naya? Conviction? Inspiring words? His tone edged on mockery, but there was a flicker of respect that she couldn't ignore. Or are you willing to make sacrifices to turn word into action? The challenge loomed. Naya wrestled with her instinct to bristle at his accusation, yet she recognized the familiar knot of ambition tightening in her core. Here was an opportunity not only to rally forces but to examine her own resolve more critically. Before she could answer, Sam interjected. You think we don't know about sacrifice? This isn't a game. Isn't it, Sam? Corbin shot back, growing animated. You think any developer cares about the weight of your loss? They'll bulldoze this place without a second thought, and you would be left with nothing but echoes of your struggle. You want change? Be ready to play by their rules while rewriting your own. Naya took a breath, letting his words sink in. The clarity of his perspective cut through the facade of optimism. She was here to advocate, yes, but she needed to shift the narrative from doormat to chess player. So then what should we do? She asked, eyes locked with Corbin's. If you know this system so well, teach us how to maneuver it. He nodded, appraising her yet again. A seed of unshakable determination began to root itself within her. I can show you the flaws in their strategy, but I need you both to commit fully. Corbin tilted his head, gauging their reactions. We need to be unyielding and ruthless. The passion for this land isn't enough. It requires an iron will to dismantle the very system that would see it disappear. No further half measures, Naya repeated softly, nodding to herself as much as him. A depth of understanding burgeoned. The need to not just defend, but actively create the narrative would take all of them beyond mere passion. It would require cunning. Exactly. We gather intel, position ourselves strategically, and then we strike. You'll need to reach out to other landholders, create alliances, and tap into whichever sympathy is left for this place. Corbin's demeanor was less combative now, more a mentor. Despite the unease that whispered through her, Naya felt embers of hope stirring within her. What's our first step? Sam asked warily. Naya could sense his eagerness. He was already thinking 3 moves ahead. Let's start with the development plans. I can hack into their databases and get you the latest layouts, but it won't come without risk. Corbin's eyes darkened as he considered the weight of his next words. This tactic could make you public enemies, but if it works, they'll have no choice but to reckon with you. Then let's do it, Naya declared, fear turning into a tangible adrenaline rush. Her apprehension crumbled beneath the prospect of acting decisively. As they discussed feasible actions, the storm persisted outside, now a backdrop to their newfound synergy. Every idea felt electric, a pulse matching the weather's fury as they strategized. With each passing moment, Naya recognized the threads of her life weaving into a larger narrative, a tale of resistance and reckoning that wove her insecurities into strength. In the eye of this gathering storm, she felt bolder, more equipped to confront the monsters that lay ahead, but lingering questions still haunted her. Could she navigate this perilous dance of trust and betrayal as boldly as she intended? As the last of the storm's energy burst through the air with a clap of thunder, it symbolized both a challenge and an opportunity. She now stood at the precipice, armed with awareness and a fragile alliance. How long would they be able to hold this line, and what uncharted territory awaited them on the other side of their courageous pivot? Naya's heart raced as she moved away from the gesticulating figures of Corbin and Sam, her mind a tempest of thoughts about the risk they were about to take. They spoke of strategic strikes and alliances, but all she could focus on was the potency of their decision, a decision that would push her deeper into a world of shadowy tactics and potential danger. In that heavy moment, she marveled at how quickly her life had transformed. Just one conversation with Corbin had unraveled the fabric of her previous existence, exposing a raw ambition entwined with newfound courage. Yet, in the midst of her internal tumult, one question rose like a persistent tide. What did it truly mean to be ruthless? The oppressive storm clouds outside seemed to echo her inner turmoil, their swirls a reminder of the chaos awaiting her. The electricity in the air mirrored the charged atmosphere between Corbin and Sam. Doubts flickered through Naya's mind. Was she prepared for the sacrifices that true change demanded? Naya's vision settled on a cluster of tattered maps strewn haphazardly across the dusty table, remnants of their past attempts to thwart development plans. Each creased line represented a territory she had fought to protect. A fissure of fear ignited within her as she thought of the upheaval ahead. If Corbin was correct, this would not just be a battle for survival. It would be a confrontation against a monstrous force, one that wouldn't hesitate for a second to crush their spirit if they faltered. She picked up a faded map, tracing the routes of pipelines and proposed structures that threatened the integrity of her home. This was her domain, and now she felt it slipping like sand through her fingers. But with each touch of the paper, her resolve solidified. The risks and rewards began to crystallize. Each representation of land was not just a number on a ledger, but a living story filled with memories, laughter, and community. A line is drawn, she muttered to herself, a realization dawning. To turn her voice into action, she would need to sharpen her negotiation skills. Each word, each statement would carry weight now, and if it meant turning the tide, she wouldn't hesitate to wield the weapons of persuasion and strategy. As the conversation resumed, Naya interjected with a newfound clarity. While Corbin works on gathering intel, I can reach out to everyone who cares about this land. This isn't just about our fight. We can appeal to their sense of history, of memory. They must know what could be lost. Sam eyed her, disbelief and admiration dancing in the depths of his expression. You think they'll listen? Why shouldn't they? The spark of confidence bubbled in Naya. She could feel it, lingering just beneath the surface, threatening to burst forth. We've all felt the changes creeping in. If we can present this as a united front, compounding our stories, we might just ignite a fire. Corbin gave her a long look before breaking into a reluctant smile. Maybe there's more to you than conviction after all. For the first time, Naya realized they weren't merely novices fending off a bulldozer. They were architects of something greater. She suddenly saw the larger blueprints forming in her mind, a tapestry of collaboration built from threads deeply rooted in history, resilience, and shared purpose. Still, the sobering thought shrouded her victorious moment. Negotiations could go awry. Every player they reached out to might have hidden agendas. The question crept in again, gnawing at her confidence. Could she truly trust Corbin and even Sam to share their vision equally? Or would she find herself isolated when the stakes grew higher? As the clouds finally burst, rain poured down, mirroring the tumult brewing inside her. They needed to act fast, but with every step forward, the world felt increasingly precarious. New alliances might bring unexpected challenges, and the fragility of their pact weighed heavily. As she stood, bracing herself against the tempest outside, she understood that the commitment ahead would demand more from her than she could have imagined. The true test of her mettle was just beginning, and Naya realized she was not just awakening her ambition, she was awakening the determination to fight against an unseen adversary that sought to erase them. That powerful surge of resolve fueled her steps down the creaking hall, and with every heartbeat echoing in her ears, she thought about her next move. Would she be able to build the alliances necessary to navigate the treacherous waters ahead? Or would hidden truths bubble up to drown her burgeoning plans? Naya stepped outside, the rain drenching her almost instantly, but she welcomed the chill, letting it refresh her resolve. The wet pavement glistened beneath the flickering streetlights, reflecting the internal upheaval swirling in her mind. Any moment now, she would have to bridge the gap between her scattered allies and the looming threats that seemed to multiply with each passing hour. The drumming of the rain was almost meditative, focusing her conflicting thoughts. More than just anxiety, what she felt was an awakening, a surge of ambition intertwined with an urgency to act. With each stride, the stakes loomed larger. She noticed how she maneuvered through the puddles, avoiding the splashes but aware that confrontation was inevitable, both physically and psychologically. As she reached the edge of the small town, a thought flickered in the back of her mind. Would her approach actually resonate with those she intended to reach? The journey towards self-advocacy was fraught with risks, and if her message failed, the consequences could ripple through her community like storm surges against fragile shores. Her focus toggled between strategizing her outreach and assessing her allies. Could she mold Corbin's tactical mindset into something more inclusive? Sam had shown passion, but could he translate that into action? They were disparate pieces in a puzzle of momentum, and Naya needed to forge these elements into a cohesive picture. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her back. It was a message from Corbin. "Meet me at the diner. We need to talk strategy before you reach out." She quickened her pace, determined to harness whatever momentum they had created in that dimly lit room. The diner was warm, a refuge filled with the smell of coffee and the quiet hum of distant conversations. Corbin was seated at a booth, his brow furrowed as he stared into a cup of black coffee, the steam curling towards the ceiling like thoughts escaping him. "Glad you could make it," he said without looking up, his tone muted, almost cautious. Naya slid into the booth opposite him. "I've been thinking about our next steps, how we can engage our supporters. They need to feel this urgency too." He turned to meet her gaze. "It's a delicate situation. We might alienate those who aren't on board with our approach, and if the word spreads about our plan," he paused, weighing the gravity of their conversation, "it'll set off alarms." Naya's stomach twisted at the image of their plans unraveling before her eyes. "We can't let fear dictate our choices. Look at what's at stake. We need to express the gravity of our cause. It's not just about the land anymore. It's about our identity." "Are you prepared for the fallout?" Corbin's question cut through the air, sharp and pointed. "People's reactions can be unpredictable. Some might even turn against us." She felt the walls of doubt pressing against her. The weight of uncertainty was becoming a fixture competing with her resolve. "I can't think that way. If I start questioning every decision I make, I'll never find the courage to stand up for what matters." Corbin studied her, weighing her words carefully. "It's not just courage that's needed, it's strategy. We need to identify allies who are truly committed, not just those who show up when it's convenient." "Then let's work on that together," Naya insisted, her heart racing with purpose. "We can vet who we engage and build a strategy that resonates with the history of this place. If we don't capitalize on what we have now, it may all slip away." The flicker of admiration crossed his face, but it was accompanied by a trace of skepticism. "You realize once we start, there's no turning back. This isn't a game anymore, it's war." "Maybe it's about time someone fought back," she replied, feeling the surge of clarity wash over her. This was not just a battle for land, but a fight for integrity, for memories embedded in their soul. Steely determination coalesced within her as she leaned forward. Let's create a plan that shows just how much they stand to lose. This is just the beginning. Turning her thoughts to tomorrow, she grasped the potential alliances and the necessary confrontations awaiting her. Could she navigate the intricate web of emotions and hidden agendas? Would her voice truly resonate, or would the tumult silence her ambitions forever? Naya left the diner with newfound resolve, the sounds of the storm now a background to the growing intensity within her. Where would this path take her, and at what cost? The uncharted territory ahead loomed large, and soon she would have to confront the shadows harboring secrets, hidden truths that could either propel her forward or shatter her newfound resolve. Naya woke before dawn, the rain from the night before having transformed into a heavy mist that hung low over the town. She had barely slept, her mind racing with potential outcomes and new strategies to consider. The diner meeting with Corbin had ignited something in her, a flicker of purpose that felt almost electric. She dressed quickly, her resolve bolstered by the growing clarity of her mission. As she stepped outside, the cool air invigorated her, sharpening her focus. This morning was not about consequence-free discussions. It was about actionable steps. She needed to understand the lay of the land better, not only for her own mental acuity, but to prepare for the allies she intended to gather. Her first stop was the old library, a building of wooden beams and stained glass windows that often provided solace and refuge. But today, it was a place of research. Knowledge would be her weapon, and to wield it effectively, she needed information about the zoning laws and the land they were at risk of losing. She pushed through the heavy doors, the musty aroma of books welcoming her inside. Navigating the aisles, her fingers brushed against the spines of countless books. They whispered stories of resilience, of fighting against oppressive forces. Naya pulled out a volume on local history, her heart racing as she read about the generations before her, their struggles, their losses, and their undeniable spirit. She absorbed every fact, intertwining the past with her present intentions, and soon her mind was aflame with insights she could use. After a few hours, her backpack laden with resources, Naya headed to the park that bordered the land in question. She needed fresh air to think and a quieter place to strategize her next steps. Sitting on a bench that oversaw the overgrown plot, she contemplated the weeds swallowing the remnants of the land. This was where her community had gathered for decades, celebrations, disagreements, unions. She could virtually hear the voices of her friends and neighbors echoing through the trees. But it was also a reminder of the fragility of those shared memories. Would they stand together when it truly mattered? Could she be the catalyst that transformed their fear into action? In that moment, brewing doubts began to rise within her again, creeping like shadows across her clarity. What if her voice, amplified by passion, was drowned out by indifference or worse, resentment? Naya took a deep breath. She could not afford to waver. Slipping her backpack from her shoulders, she spread out the documents she had printed, maps, legal texts, historical accounts. Each piece stood as a pillar of the case she had to craft. The urgency stirred within her again, driving away lingering uncertainties. As she worked, a figure emerged from the mist, Sam. His face, normally filled with unfiltered enthusiasm, looked noticeably serious today. The air shifted as he approached, a mix of curiosity and anxiety evident in his posture. "Naya," he said, a wavering edge in his voice. "I've been thinking about what you said the other night, about how critical it is to rally the community. I want to help." The sincerity of his words struck her at once. Was this the support she needed, or merely another fleeting moment of warmth that might not last? She searched his eyes, looking for something, commitment, resolve, but all she saw was uncertainty mirroring her own. "Are you ready for this?" Naya challenged gently, her voice steady despite the turbulence in her heart. "This is going to take everything we've got. There's no turning back once we start." "I know," Sam replied, his voice low but firm. "And I'm willing to commit. I've seen how passionate you are, and it makes me want to be part of this. But we have to be smart about it." She felt a wave of appreciation wash over her for him. In that moment, she recognized not only a potential ally, but also a piece of her strategy forming. But would it be enough? "We'll work together, but we need to be clear about our plan moving forward," she said with renewed determination, even as a sliver of doubt snaked through her convictions. "I need you to dig deep, find those who truly care about this place. We have to make this real. Are you in?" With a nod, Sam seemed to ground her chaotic thoughts. There was potential in their partnership, and she realized she had to harness that spark. Together they could confront whatever awaited them. As they began to flesh out their plan, Naya felt the weight of the mission settle firmly upon her shoulders. The thrill of discovering allies amidst uncertainty blended with the ever-looming shadows of opposition. Could they unify their disparate strengths against the dark tides threatening their home? Would this new partnership rise above the doubts, or would it falter in the face of the inevitable challenges to come? The path was becoming clearer, but what awaited them was still a mystery, one that could either solidify her purpose or distort it beyond recognition. The question lingered persistently as they mapped out their course. What now lay ahead would surely test the boundaries of their resolve. Naya stood at the precipice of her family's land, the sun rising in a golden haze that bathed the surroundings in warmth. The storm that had battered her thoughts was finally giving way to a new dawn. A metaphorical rebirth reflecting the personal transformation she had undergone since the dark events of recent months. This was her land, her heritage, and she was ready to reclaim it, not just from the developers, but from her own doubts. Days of strategizing, looping in allies, and organizing community meetings had turned the tide. Each conversation had reinforced her belief in the strength of her family's legacy and her own place within it. Naya could feel the collective energy of those she had rallied behind her, an undeniable force pushing against the impending threat of erasure from the landscape. They had dared to dream anew, to reclaim the narrative that had been usurped by the corporate power that sought to strip their history bare. Sam had transformed alongside her. He was no longer just the formless adversary entangled with Naya's past pain. He had emerged as an invaluable ally. Together, they had mapped both emotional and logistical pathways, deftly weaving their strengths together. His insights into the developers' tactics complemented her intimate understanding of the land, creating a formidable alliance rooted in genuine purpose. As the morning light brightened her surroundings, Naya reflected on how far she had come. No longer paralyzed by anger or fear, she had harnessed her emotions, translating them into a steely resolve. She stood as a leader now, a spokesperson for those who couldn't voice their concerns and dreams. Her first significant achievement came in the form of a town hall meeting that had secured the attendance of prominent community figures and activists. In that forum, she had articulated her vision with precision, calling forth not only their collective memories of the land, but also a shared responsibility to protect it. The engaged discourse had surged. Questions bounced around the room like wildfire. Even the reluctant had begun to grasp the gravity of their plight. Ultimately, they had banded together to create a comprehensive proposal highlighting the historical, ecological, and cultural significance of the ranch, counteracting the developers' intentions. Naya had spearheaded this document, each word a testament to her evolution from a frightened girl into a resolute woman of influence. In the days that followed, storm clouds still loomed on the horizon, but their weight felt lighter now. She had rallied not just her own family, but a coalition of diverse voices, standing stronger against the tempest of development. External validation came swiftly. Local media followed their efforts, amplifying the storm of support that had built around them. Naya had found herself not only recognized as a custodian of her family's heritage, but a strategic leader woven into the fabric of her community. "Your ability to galvanize and inspire is remarkable," Sam said to her one evening as they reviewed their burgeoning plan. The admiration in his voice struck a chord deep within her. "And I couldn't have done this without you," Naya replied earnestly, her confidence blooming as she turned to face him. "You've shown me the importance of blending ambition with heart." What had felt so unbearable months ago, a feeling of isolation and despair, had morphed into empowerment. She had proven to herself that her voice mattered, that collaboration could pivot her destiny from burden to strength. Following weeks of dedication, her community finally organized a coordinated response to the developers. Naya took center stage at the last rally, her unwavering voice cutting through the haze of skepticism surrounding their efforts. "We're not just fighting for land, we're asserting our identity," she declared to an applauding crowd. The words rolled from her tongue like a powerful melody, resonating deeply as she felt each soul around her vibrate with the shared truth of her statement. As the sun dipped below the horizon that evening, painting the sky in vibrant colors, Naya stood with her allies overlooking the land, no longer just a symbol of battle, but a canvas of hope. She allowed herself to feel the satisfaction of what they had achieved, minimalizing despair to a flicker in the distance. Her personal journey of growth and transformation had reached a conclusion, but it was only the beginning of what lay ahead. They had secured a temporary halt to the development plans, purchasing them precious time, a precious milestone, a solid footing from which to launch further resistance. Naya's heart swelled with pride. She had overcome not just the encroaching threat to her family's legacy, but had etched her name within the narrative of their shared history. No longer merely a steward of land, she was now a voice for justice, a champion for future generations. Those feelings of triumph fused into an unwavering stance against greed, forever challenging the tempest that had once loomed over her. Now, she was ready for whatever came next. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to never miss a heartfelt story of overcoming adversity. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach others with similar battles. Comment below your reactions and theories about Naya's journey and what it means to you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second.